Good morning, dearest friends. Welcome. We're on the march to a new year, and our wonderful members of the Chabur are here once again to study the entire Talmud, one line at a time. And presently, we are studying Maseches Shabbos, chapter 19, Kuf Lamed Dalid Amud Beis 1, 3, 4b. Today, we are dedicating our learning for the yahrzeit of the father of a dear member of ours. Yahrzeit is Erev Rosh Hashanah, but we're not going to be learning on Rosh Hashanah. It's a Sunday. So I want to dedicate today's learning for the yahrzeit of Yehuda Leib ben Menachem Mendel, our dear Mark's father. I also would like to dedicate today's learning for the yahrzeit of Yaakov Aryeh ben Lipman. This is a Jew called Jack Einstas, a Holocaust survivor who passed without any descendants. And actually, I'm sorry, not the yahrzeit. Today is the Siyam HaKadosh. And so we'll dedicate our learning for his neshama. And Zichro Baruch, his memory should be for a blessing. And is the background noise on my end very loud?
No,
not
okay,
bad. So I suppose this is a bracha of a good mic. Let's see. All right. So,
or our senior citizens who have hearing impairments.
Now we don't hear you at all.
What'd you say?
Yeah, I hit mute by mistake. But I was showing you we have a very robust, high-end microphone that, well, I don't know. Anyways, here we go. Gentlemen, if we could whisper because we're giving a Gemara share and it's no worries. All right. Again, we're dedicating today's learning for the for the Siyam HaKadosh, Yaakov Aryeh ben Lipman, Yehuda Leib ben Menachem Mendel, the father of our dear Reb Mark, Neshama Shem and Aliyah, and in prayerful wishes for good news for all the dear members of the Chabura. Hashem should bless every one of the members of the Chabura and their households, those in the front of the cameras, those that are behind the cameras, with good health and happiness, naches, and all parnasa, and all good blessings. And again, when we go to Rosh Hashanah, we have a big case to make to Hashem. Look at this beautiful hours, hundreds of hours of Talmud study, thousands of questions and discussions to clarify the meaning of the Talmud and to bring it into a contemporary context. Big, beautiful credits, in my biased opinion, that we can take into the new year. And a Yasher Koyach again for being part of what I think is a very, very special experiment. And I know I personally, as I've said once or twice, very much gain and enjoy it. And I could learn Gemara with the Chabrusa, but I can be certain and I can assure you I would not have the same degree of insight and the same kind of scholarship. And so I'm grateful to our Chabura. Let's share the screen and begin. To remind you, our Mishnah is talking about let's whisper if we don't mind. We can talk. Thank you. We're talking about bathing on Shabbos. And as we mentioned yesterday, it was understood in the time of the Gemara, bathing was an essential therapy for a baby before and after the bris. As we saw in the Shulchan Aruch, we might describe what transpired as somewhat of an evolution of the medical or the physiological needs and conditions of the human being, where once upon a time it was absolutely needed and then later it was not. Dr. Stamler presented an interesting proposal or an interesting historic context, which is that indeed, before the fall of Rome, and Jews living in Eretz Yisrael were under Roman dominion, we know that bathing was a central part of that culture, maybe not every day, but with a certain degree of consistency. And Reb Menachem pointed out that in what we call the Dark Ages, but after the fall of Rome until the Renaissance, it seems like bathing was much less of a central aspect of of human living. And so it is possible that there is some kind of reflection of the change of times and the human condition. I don't know. exactly, but I can only tell you what the text of the Gemara and the text of the Mishnah says, but it certainly seems to be a parallel.
In Spain, at the times of the Inquisition and forced conversions, the government encouraged people to report on those neighbors who bath on Fridays, suspecting them to be hidden Jews.
So, Professor, this tells me two things. First of all, that Jews were associated with bathing at least once a week. And second of all, the bathing must have been more prevalent than we might have let on in that era, because the Inquisition was, let's say, 12, 13, 14, 1500s were times where we might imagine that things were incredibly backwards, but at least bathing, from this evidence, from this testimony, was something that existed. So we have to work with Rabbi Nachum to figure out exactly which areas and which regions. And of course, it's interesting that the Beis Yosef, who came from the Sephardic tradition, says that today we don't bathe. But he didn't say we don't bathe, period. He just said bathing wasn't an essential therapy for a baby about to experience a bris. And the Ramah says, probably reflecting the Ashkenazic minhag, which was to try our best to give that bath based on the Mishnah and the Gemara's teaching. Dr. Hammer.
I don't want to nitpick, but there's a word that you used 4 times, very important to me. It's called therapy. And I don't define therapy as something that you do before. If there's a disorder or a disease or something, it's something you do in reaction to it. So my understanding of the bathing before, and I mentioned it yesterday, was to prevent germs, for cleanliness, and perhaps warm water to relax the baby, because we know that warm water can do something to whatever. So I'm just saying, please be careful with the word therapy.
Listen, Dr. Hammer, with the word therapy, I will always defer to you.
Yeah.
My
but it's serious.
No, I'll tell you my thinking, and I'll tell you why I think I accept your position. I was thinking that, in a sense, to be a baby, you already have a certain medical condition called, meaning, in a sense, the infant is already in a certain degree of distress and has a certain degree of things that need to be remedied. And so that was why I was thinking, before the bris, we want to make sure to already give the baby whatever. And I don't, but okay, I'll revise my description.
No, but you could I'll give you a better rationalization that I would make if I wanted to, that there are certain things that cause tremendous stress, losing your job, divorce, death, moving from New Jersey moving from the womb to the world is major. So
traumatic.
So I would justify you using it.
Dr. Hammer, almost every patient in therapy
right.
has with certainty had to undergo that transition, and that's probably
there you go. Right. Okay.
All right, very fair.
Enough.
So we were trying to understand the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, on one hand, bathe, like you do marchitzin, bathe, and then it's qualified only use the hand, not a kli. And so the Mishnah seems like it was contradicting itself. And so we gave one shot that says that the Mishnah was explaining itself. When we said bathe, we only meant bathing with the hand, but not using a kvart to pour the water, a cup to pour the water over the head of the baby. Rava says no. Our Mishnah is describing 2 different babies, or 2 different moments in the baby's life, and the different moments in the baby's life get different kinds of bathing. A baby pre and post bris, we bring in the big guns, bathe like usual. But on the 3rd day after the bris, where a baby also is in distress, and maybe there's some kind of remedy, or dare I say therapy needed, well then, you could give a bath if it's Shabbos, but only with this shinoi, only with a hand and not with a cup. And we found a brisa that almost exactly deciphers, translates our Mishnah along the way Rava understood it. Now, the brisa doesn't purport to be translating the Mishnah. But we have a Mishnah, which is a shorthand, and then we have a slightly more elaborate text in the Brisa, which literally goes blow by blow, play by play, precisely with the way Rav understood it. And so we can infer from here that that is indeed the Pshat. The Brisa continues. I think we stopped in the middle.
Rabbi, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So the Malchitzin was actually theoretically supposed to be a therapeutic. The reason for washing was therapeutic. So do we see anywhere that female babies, you can wash the baby on Shabbos also?
So I'll tell you how I understood it. No. And also regular baby doesn't get washed on Shabbos per se, except on the bris. The way I understood it is that a baby is generally in a precarious state, but a baby can survive. Most adults survive babyhood. But before we give the baby put the baby into additional distress through a bris, we really want to, and maybe as Dr. Hammer said, we want to put him in an ideal and preferred condition by cleaning him or whatever. Again, I don't understand exactly what the bathing did that was a sakana not to do it, but maybe I think Doctor, I like what you said. Maybe the baby needed to be in a particularly calm state, and maybe that was that was understood to contribute to the success of the circumcision. And so we would bathe the baby not because the baby is in jeopardy just for being a baby, but baby plus bris, we're going to need to give them this bath before, and then after the bris, of course, the baby once again is going to be in a state of distress. Although, to be honest, we can ask Reb Beryl and Dr. Stam, I think you were also recently by a bris. Babies at a bris seem to bounce back to themselves at a fairly surprising and rapid pace. It appears as if the baby, 10 minutes after the bris, doesn't remember what he went through until you go to change the diaper and then do wound care. And then, of course, the baby might perk up and remember that, yeah, something kind of painful happened. But baby seems to be, yes.
And they didn't bathe often all the way up to the Middle Ages, but what they did do was use a lot of cologne and stuff like that. Would that be a shaila on whether to rub it on the Shabbos?
Well, I don't think the baby needs the cologne for the purposes of, I don't think the babies are concerned about smell. I mean, maybe they are, but they have never communicated that to us. Anyways, that is the story.
I have an odd question for you, Rabbi.
Okay. Hold on. Do you give me the either we'll answer it or we'll defer it? Go ahead.
It's for this. If the lady, the mother, whoever it is, warms up water for the bath for the baby on the Shabbos.
Okay.
And she has too much water. Can she use that water for something else, for a coffee or something like that?
So actually, you may have seen yesterday, we opened the Shulchan Aruch, I think it was, and we saw that actually, and Dr. Stamler had a problem with this. Just trying to remind everyone when we had this conversation, it does not appear that we are allowed to warm up water on Shabbos. The water can be warmed up prior to Shabbos and kept in a thermos, or otherwise kept in an environment where the heat is preserved, and then you can use it to bathe the baby. But one does not warm the water on Shabbos. So therefore, no. But Alan, we do use hot water that's on a, either on a blech or in a proper kind of a chaynik, right, of a percolator. We would use that water on Shabbos for permitted purposes. So presumably the same thing would apply then. A good question.
Thank you.
Let's. All right, the Brisa continues. I don't think I read this. Ukeshehin mezalfin, when you spritz the baby, when you sprinkle the baby on the third day, ein mezalfin loy bekois, loy bekaira, loy bekli, and lo biyad. You say that, and when we spritz, we only use the hand. Asa on the Tanakama, this reflects the opinion of the Tanakama. And this is an elaboration of our Mishnah. All right, let's have some fun here. Let's take a look at further analysis of our Bryce. My apple pisha in raya ledavar, zeichel ledavar. We want to. How do we know that a baby is in extreme pain after the third day, which is why we said that if the baby's third day is on Shabbos, you could bathe the baby. Which again, Dr. Hammer, this seems to fortify the impression that the bathing was a therapy or to help the baby overcome the distress associated with the pain of the bris. So the Gemara wants to know, what does it mean? Afal pishein raya ledavar zeich ledavar. Why is it not an immediate proof? It seems to be perfect. This was the third day after bris, and this baby is the third day after the bris. Why are we hedging our bets? Why are we not being absolutely confident? It's not a proof, but it's a zeicher. Just say this is the proof. So the Gemara answers, let's think about who the subjects in the verse in the story of Chamor and the people of Shechem were versus the baby. Is there any difference between the people of Shechem and the baby and a baby? And so, of course, the answer is that there's a lot of things that are different about how an adult heals and how a child heals. Mishum the gadol loy solik bisrei hayin. An adult does not heal as fast as katan solik bisrei. A child has a much faster healing. Rashi, Hainu Timer Demaisa Shechem Lavraya Gemor. Here's why the story of Shechem was not a perfect proof. Mishum the Gadol in Makkah Shababsori Malarucha Maher Aval Katan is dropping me Mide Sakana Maher. A child heals a whole lot faster than an adult. One of the wonders of Hashem's creation, babies, children. So there's two things. Number one, babies on average, children on average seem to avoid injury, notwithstanding the precarious lifestyle they maintain at a higher rate than adults. There's a old Jewish saying that a baby has an angel that goes before them, and so when they fall, a malach catches them. No, but the body is more, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's more cartilage than bone, or I don't know. Babies have a little more of a bounce in them, but the reality is not babies, but kids. But they also tend to heal faster, whereas adults take longer to heal. So although
Rabbi, one of the reasons why adult circumcision healing takes longer than the babies is the direction interferes with healing.
I'm sorry?
Even inadvertent erection in an adult interferes
Yes.
with healing of circumcision.
Yes, but true. But I think also we're saying a more fundamental challenge, which is that in general, adults take longer to heal.
Right, but this is a specific condition. But
there is also a specific reason or a specific condition that is introduced in an adult that a kid wouldn't have, and that is a fair.
I can only testify that the older take longer. That part I could testify to.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's see the Gemara as it continues. Hahu the also the Kamei the Rava. Somebody came before Rava with a shaila. What do I do? Can I bathe my baby after his bris? Oy relay kishmate. And he told him, yes, go ahead and wash the baby on Shabbos. Rashi, oy relay kishmate. Hitter loy harechitza kedarka b'merishan shechal yes b'Shabbos. Go ahead. On the bris day, go ahead and bathe the baby. Ichlash Rava. Rava became sick. Amar, he said, Ana b'hadi torgama the savi lamali. Oy. Maybe my illness is a punishment. Rashi. He said, why did I not give some covet to those who disagree with me, who dissent with me? Let's read. Oh, no. Okay, let's see. The sages of the previous generation, Rav Yehuda and Rav Bar Avu, articulated the halacha in a different, more stringent manner. Oh, because Rava says you can use a cup. But Rav Yehuda and Rava are more strict. Why did I argue with Rav Yehuda and Rav Bar Avu? He should have given the qualifier, the restriction of his great esteemed elder sages. The Rabbanan told the Rava, hey, why are you so anxious? It's not your own original interpretation. There's a brisa that supports you, and so you have the weight of the senior source. Amalahu masnisin kavosaihu daika. The Mishnah actually I'm sorry. The brisa supports me, but the masnisin, our Mishnah kavasayu daika, works even better according to their language. Because if you look at the Mishnah, it sounds more like a qualifier than talking about a different scenario. So Rava says, you're right, the weight of the brisa leans in my balance. The brisa gives me credit or credence, but the Mishnah supports them. Mimai, where do you see that the brisa seems to support not Rava's opinion, the other opinion? From the fact that the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says we wash the cut on the child on Shabbos. If the Tanakam was talking about spritzing, we'll understand where Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah comes back with merchitzin. But if the Mishnah really intended to communicate the way Rava said, that on the first day you can bathe, on the third day you can only sprinkle with your hand, he should have said af marchitzin. Again, I'm going through this fast, but the bottom line is, if Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was really coming to teach, or the Mishnah really was in accordance to Rava, and we were giving three different scenarios, he would have added the words af marchitzin. Let's read Rabbi Steinsaltz, and then we'll go further. He should have said that one may even wash on the third day, because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is not disputing about bathing a baby on the first day. First Tana also agrees you can bathe a baby. The dispute is whether or not the leniency extends to the third day. Since a precise reading of the Mishnah supports the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Bar Ava, the brisa supporting Rabba's opinion is not sufficiently authoritative to supplant that understanding, and therefore Rava felt a little bad. He didn't feel that his opinion was wrong, but he felt that he should have given some weight or credit in his answer to his colleagues with which he disagrees.
Rabbi,
Yes.
sorry to ask the Klotz Kasha. Why are we so concerned of washing the baby or sprinkling the baby when the net effect is going to be the same to clean the area or wet the area or whatever?
Because it doesn't appear that we're talking about cleaning the area. It appears that we're talking about giving the baby a bath. And the understanding was that the baby needed a bath. And so now we're clarifying exactly how one may give the baby a bath.
What's
and
the
baths on Shabbos
halachically?
are not allowed. And so if we're going to say that you can give a bath, we need to know exactly when and how. And that's what we're concerned with in this Gemara.
Yeah, but what's the big difference halachically? You can splash him enough that it would be the same effect as the bath.
You're asking, by the way, Rebero, this is like I'm saying this as a compliment. You have a consistent mahalech, you have a consistent style of questioning, which is why do the more edgy, controversial things just moderate your behavior to be a less of a shaila. So you're asking, what do you care if you use a cup or your hand? Just give the baby with your hand. You didn't say that, but that's what I'm understanding. And the answer, once again, is no. Our Gemara wants to actually know what the halacha is. And the Gemara compels us to do a lot of chumrah. And so where a leniency is permitted, the Gemara is certainly going to not just say, just do the harder thing. No, the Gemara is probing the fullness of the halacha. And therefore we have a Mishnah, which gives us a clue. And we have two different ways of interpreting the Mishnah. And it's important. It's important, especially your barrel. Go visit the new parents. I don't know, especially if they don't have a nurse or somebody helping out, and go see how tired they are. The slightest added inconvenience when you're a new parent or the parent of a new baby is not a small deal. If Allah doesn't permit it, then we're not going to permit it. Just to make people crazy, that's not the attitude of our Gemara. So, there you have it.
I'm waiting for Dr. Hammer to use the word kavana.
It's always there.
Yeah, Kavana is always hovering. It's always present. And the reality is that's actually the truth. Everything we do is either with Kavana or without Kavana. Now, it doesn't always have halachic implications, but all right. Ki asar avdimi amar Rabbi Elazar. Reb Beryl, you're about to be a little vindicated, so hold on. A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I swatted you. I swatted something that you said away, but soon we'll see some attention from the Gemara. Ki asar avdimi amar Rabbi Elazar. When Rabbi Dimi came, he quoted Rabbi Elazar saying that halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. What did Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah say in the Mishnah? He prone to vertigo, turn away. He said, "Marchitzin as a katan b'yamashlish shechol es b'Shabbos." That's what he taught. And the question is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah arguing with Tim and Mizalfin? Did he say that you can even wash the baby properly, unlike the Tanakama says you can't? Or did he teach a independent halacha, which is that you bathe the baby on the third day? That was our old discussion. Now, Rav Dimi has arrived from Israel to Bavel, and he shared with us that the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that you can bathe the baby on the third day. Havu baby marava. They were hearing this comment. There was a discussion. When Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, he says marchitzin, harchatzas kol gufay, harchatzas mila. Is it a full body bath, or is it purely about cleansing the site of the bris? So Rebel, you said something, and I said no, it's a full bath. But now on the third day, the Gemara is going to entertain your question. So let's see the Gemara's discussion. Amrlu Hahu Mirabanan, one of the rabbis, Rabbi Yaakov Shmei, called Rabbi Yaakov, gave the following reason. Mistabra harchatzas kol gufay. Probably it's the entire body that we're talking about. Do you think we're talking about just cleansing, sanitizing, disinfecting the site of the procedure of the bris? Migara michaben al gabe maka. If we're just talking about bathing the site of the milah, of course you can bathe. Of course you can clean the site of the milah. We don't need any special bris discussion. In general, Rav taught that one is allowed to apply water, warm water, oil to do wound care. So Rav Yaakov says, like I said, but the rabbis of the sages of the West, of the Eretz Yisrael, had Reb Beryl's question. But this is not the end of the conversation. Maskif lo Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef challenges Rav Yaakov's assertion. Surely you will yet differentiate between water that was prepared on Shabbos and water that was prepared on Erev Shabbos. Rashi placing hot water. I'm sorry, not Rashi. Rabbi Steinholtz placing hot water that was heated on Shabbos on a wound only violates, meaning on Erev Shabbos, only violates a rabbinic decree. Heating water on Shabbos is absolutely prohibited. And And although until now we asserted based on a reading on the Shulchan Aruch, which came after the balance of our Gemara, we said that the water was heated before Shabbos. At this point, the Gemara is assuming that the water was heated on Shabbos. So now let's read this carefully. Yosef says, you can't compare case A and case B. Case A, which is talking about regular wound care, is only talking about water heated up before Shabbos. And therefore that would be obvious. Case B, the case of bris, is talking about water that's heated on Shabbos. And so on the third day, we need a special teaching to say you can, special teaching to teach you that you have to wash, that you can wash the site of the bris with hot water. And therefore you could not infer it from this halacha. And therefore it's quite possible that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was only talking about cleaning the site of the bris. We cannot prove that we're talking about the whole body. Maskif lo Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi pushes back to Rav Yosef, who pushed back to Rav Dimi's interpretation. I'm sorry, Rav Dimi pushes back to Rav Yosef, who rejects the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov that says it's the whole body. So again, the rabbis in Israel say on the third day, can you wash the whole body or just the side of the bris? Rabbi Yaakov says obviously the whole body, because we don't need any teaching to say you have to wash the side of the bris. Rav Yosef says, hold on, are you sure? It's a very big distinction between water heated up on Shabbos and water heated up before Shabbos, and therefore we do need a special teaching in the Mishnah to say that you can wash the side of the bris with water heated up on Shabbos. Rav Dimi pushes back to that assertion that Rav Dimi wants to defend that it's the whole body. Where are you taking? Where are you presuming that our Mishnah is talking about heating up water on Shabbos? Dilma bechamen shuchma be'erev Shabbos pligi. There's a very good chance, says Rav Dimi, that our Gemara is talking about water that was heated up on Erev Shabbos. Hamar Abaye now chimes in and says, Ana boi de'eshanile. I wanted to give my answer. V'kadam v'shanile Rav Yosef, but Rav Yosef preempted me. Rav Yosef was a senior generation, so Rav Yosef had priority to talk. And he said, Mipnei shesakana hulai. Of course, we're talking about heating up water on Shabbos, because our Mishnah is talking generally about a sakana. And so the context of our Mishnah must be talking about a license to heat up water on Shabbos. What's the sakana? I think we're talking about the baby on the day of the bris is a sakana. So for sure we let him heat up water on Shabbos, from our perspective now. Therefore, the Mishnah is talking about heating up water on Shabbos. Therefore, Rav Yosef and Abaye tell Rav Dimi, we're talking about water that was heated up on Shabbos. If we're talking about water that was heated up on Shabbos, we can't infer it from general wound care. Now we're stuck back, assuming that the Mishnah says you can wash on the third day. We're only talking about the site of the circumcision. Rashi Amar Abaye Ana Boidi Shanali Ani Hayitzi Reis Lataritz at Kafka as Kafta do Zu the Kedeshani Rav Yosef Pnei Sakana Hilai. I wanted to give this answer, but Rav Yosef preempted me. For sure, our Mishnah means you're allowed to heat up water on Shabbos, b'yamim harishonim, on the first day of the bris. So the Rebbe Elazar af b'shlishi pnei sheminias chamin sakana ulai, because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah thinks that on the third day it is also a sakana. So Lemaisa, I think we're stuck at saying that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is permitting to bathe the baby only the side of the bris. I think that's what he's saying. Now the reality is, so the Gemara doesn't explicitly say it, but the way I understand the Gemara, the balance of the discussion seems to point that in the time of the Mishnah, when you would be Mechavel Shabbos to bathe a baby, based on the interpretation of Rav Yosef, or based on Rav Yosef's challenge to Rabbi Yaakov, it seems like one could only bathe the site of the bris on the third day, according to Blazer and Azariah, at a time where it was understood to be a life-saving situation. But not everyone actually learns the Gemara that way. But this is what I would be inclined to infer based on a reading of the Gemara. Not a terribly confusing Gemara, but there is certainly a healthy dose of back and forth. So any questions or comments before we try to take a stab at one more chunk of Gemara?
So this is a good answer to my question also.
What was your question?
Could the woman, if she heats up too much water, she could use it for something else. This way, it's
Yes.
only for the area, so you can't.
It doesn't
you
answer
can't
your
make the
question,
mistake.
but it vindicates your question.
That's right.
And it turns out that I was incorrect to respond to your question the way I did, because based on this reading, although the Shulchan Aruch, or this, I don't remember now what we saw, whatever we studied yesterday did not reflect that, but this place in the Gemara is clear, or pretty clear anyways, that we're talking about heating up water on Shabbos. And so your question is a good question. What can you do with the leftover bath water? I can tell you one thing: don't throw out the baby with the bath water. That I can tell you for sure. Now let's see the Gemara continue this discussion.
Rabbi, just before we leave the subject, what exactly do we mean by heating water on Shabbos? Again, to me, this again opens up a whole discussion like the question of carrying the knife. Could you prepare even to make the knife, etc., etc.? Doesn't this come in here too?
It does, except if it's for a sakana, and heating water is not exactly like, now I'm taking Alan's position. We're going to be back and forth on this, but heating water is not something you can do many days in advance. Or actually, I'm taking Dr. Stamler's position. You can't really heat water 3 days in advance or 2 days in advance. Hot water has a very limited shelf life. It's kind of, you can sell salt. You can sell salt water for the Seder. You can package it a week in advance, but there's no chance you're going to be able to sell little packets of hot water.
No, but Rabbi, my problem is what you had to do to heat water. It's not a question of, a Chinik or a microwave.
So we're saying that you're doing malacha. It's sakana. It's a sakana. If it is a sakana, and this is what's going to help the baby avoid sakana, well, then you can do anything or almost anything. So that is that.
Let me
Let's
ask
see a
you a
little-
question.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna do a Reb Leib, I'm gonna do a Klatzkashi. What exactly constitutes warming up on Shabbos? So let's assume, I understand if you put a fire, it's warming up. But let's say you have a pot, you put water on it, and bringing it from inside the home, and in Israel especially, there's some days that are quite hot. You bring it outdoors, and the sun naturally warms it up. Is that considered cooking on Shabbos? Is that considered something you cannot use?
You're asking a good question. So I want to first affirm that we learned, is it Par Gimel? I don't remember now. There are different types of heats. There's fire. There's things that are heated by the core, if you will. Springs. There's cooking in the sun, etc. I don't want to go fully down that, but what I do want to say, which I think will answer your question, is that when we talk about heating water, we mean kindling a fire and placing the pot on the fire and having hot water to cleanse the baby. And obviously anything that would be less than that. But we mean even hardcore Chilul Shabbos. Because When there's a sakana, it's not chilul Shabbos. Part of the laws of Shabbos are you don't do these works except when there is a sakana. And so we even mean the most explicit and not permitted type of heating, which most certainly, were we to take this premise that it would actually mitigate a sakana, that would mean you're allowed to flip the switch on you're allowed to turn on the hot water on your sink. You would be allowed to flip the switch in Israel in your bedders to put on the hot water heater or whatever, etc. Halacha lemaisa, I don't think we actually use this because the contemporary understanding is that it's not a sakana. But scenarios where where you actually do need hot water, for example, a woman in childbirth, in labor or laboring, we do heat up water. And we would even extend that to actually putting on fire and putting anything on the. But the balance of this discussion is going to be, or the halacha lemaisa is born out of the continued discussion in our Gemara about the subject. So we're not at the end of the discussion, we're at the middle of the discussion. Which is why, anyways, it's Marnami. Indeed, we've also been taught. Ki also Ravin. So here we saw Rav Dimi, right? Well, when Ravin came to Bavel, Amar Rabbi Ba, Amar Rabbi Lazar, he quoted the same teaching in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Halacha ki Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. But here's what he said: Halacha follows Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. Bein bechamin shehu chamu b'Shabbos. Whether the hot water was heated up on Shabbos, bein bechamin shehu chamu be'erev Shabbos. Whether it was heated up on Erev Shabbos, bein archatzas kol gufay, whether cleaning the whole body, bein archatzas mila, b'nei shesakana hilai. And so, when Ravin came, we have an explicit elaboration from either Rabbi Yochanan or Rabbi Lazar saying that this license extends to water on Shabbos. Here we have the big chiddush and archatzas kol gufay, which is seemingly a distinction or not in alignment with our interpretation that we saw above. The interesting thing to show you is that in this Gemara, well, let's see. All right, let's take a look now in the halachic commentaries. So here we have the Rosh quoting our Gemara. And he says, "Va'amir Avsosh halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah b'Yom Shlishi." Halacha follows Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah on the third day after the bris Kol Shkim Rishon Shemarchitzin Oisek Kedarka, that one can wash a baby in the regular manner. Bein lif hamila, it's a typo. Bein lach hamila, bein mecham shmol Shabbos, bein mecham shuchim be'erev Shabbos. The Rif Yachad, the Kosav Shemarchitzin Oisek Kedarka bein lif hamila, bein mecham shuchim, etc. Ein dinin Shabbos. Although they are totally in the same sentence, they don't actually have the same halacha. Here he clarifies halacha l'maisa. After the bris, the baby is really in jeopardy. A Jew can heat up the water. Anyways, here's the problem. Not the problem. Here's our challenge. We are learning a snippet of conversation. The halachis have at their fingertips the fullness of the Talmudic record, and it is from there that they paskin. So halacha l'maisa, the Rosh quotes the Rif, saying that there's actually a difference in halacha between what we are matir to do to get hot water before the bris and after the bris. Let's look at the Rambam and see how he paskins. Oisin medura l'chaya. We make a fire for a woman who's laboring, even if it's the summer, and she doesn't really need fire. Because the cold could be a big problem, and maybe she feels cold. But we won't necessarily make a medura for a sick person if it's not cold. If it was a person that let blood, remember we had this discussion several chapters ago. Here's the punchline. We wash the baby on Shabbos, the day that the baby is born, after the umbilical cord has been cut, even if the water was actually heated up on Shabbos, because the baby was considered to be in a very precarious state in the day of his birth. And you can also smear and do other kinds of the treatments that are typically done for a baby upon birth. Similarly, we wash the baby before the bris, and after the bris, and on the fifth day. So the Rambam seems to be paskening straight out of our Gemara, straight out of this teaching, which permits all types of water to all types of scenarios. Of course, contrasting that with what we saw in the Rush, quoting the Rif and others, which is a little less emphatic about those licenses. Now let's take a look fast in the Kesef Mishnah. No, that's not what I was looking for. Hang on. Here, the Chema Chitzon say, Psak halacha begemar parak mila. This is precisely the psak of our Gemara. There is a consensus like the Rambam. In the Ravid's challenges, he says, She'ein mechamen leichamen ela aydei nachri me'achar hamila chutz me'achar hamila. The Ravid reflects another tradition in the halachists that says that you do not heat up water for the baby before the bris or on the third day. Interesting. All right, so basically, what seems like a straightforward discussion in the text of the Gemara, and what seems like a straightforward discussion in the Rambam ends up being quite a complicated sugya. Hang on one more second. So we looked at the Mishnah Torah, we looked at the Rambam on the topic of here. We looked at the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos. Let's look in Hilchos Mila. After the bris, the water is out and it's basically to care for the baby after the bris will do anything, but you should have been prepared. In a place, you see the Rambam here in the laws of Mila is giving us a hat tip, not a hat tip, giving a nod to the discussion we saw that there was a development, there was an evolution, if a baby actually needed to be bathed or not. In a place where the minig is to bathe the baby, you do it. If it's a sakana and that's really the halacha, then you can do everything you need. Now let's look in the Shulchan Aruch, which we saw.
Rabbi,
yes.
Wouldn't we then try to do a bris late on Shabbos, and then whatever happens, it'll be Oy Shabbos already?
You're saying so that the aftercare will be not on Shabbos. Rabbi, once again, you are applying your same shita here, which is that you're looking to avoid even permissible Chilul Shabbos. But that's not the philosophy of the Gemara. If it's permissible, it's permissible. And therefore, they don't seek a way out of it. Bizman Chachmei HaGemara. We read this already, but let's just see again. It's interesting. The Shulchan Aruch does not even encode the words of our Mishnah. He just says, this is not our minig. The Ramah has to come back and say, actually, there is a little bit of a minig. But we must make sure that it was heated up before Shabbos. Unless there was a real sakana, then of course you could heat up on Shabbos. So I was incorrect, Alan, a little bit, because you were asking a question in the Gemara and I was quoting the Shulchan Aruch. I thought I saw it in the Gemara. But of course, you have to realize that the Shulchan Aruch, because it is a much more, because the Shulchan Aruch doesn't believe nowadays that there's actually a need for bathing, so of course they're not going to let you actually do it on Shabbos.
When I duchen on the holidays, I'll ask Hashem to forgive you.
What?
When I duchen on the holidays, I'll have you in mind to forgive you.
Oh, okay, please try to have in mind. If that's where I need forgiveness, I'm doing good.
Oh, settle.
Anyways, all right, you know what? I think it's 3 minutes early, but I think we're at the close of our discussion. So my dear friends, let's close as we open mentioning the yard site, which will be on Sunday, of Yehuda Leib and Menachem Mendel, our dear Mark's father's yard site, and the Siyam HaKadosh for Yaakov Aryeh ben Lipman. And again, prayerful wishes for Ksiva v'Chasima Tova, a happy, healthy, sweet New Year. Here's what we'll do. Tomorrow, let's do a short session. I don't want to cancel. We're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, and the best way to get ready for Rosh Hashanah is to learn. So please join us again tomorrow at 9:30, but it'll probably be less than an hour. So that's the schedule for tomorrow. And then we'll see everybody after tomorrow next year. In Tafshin Pei Gimel.
I probably can't make it tomorrow, Rabbi, so I wish everybody a Ksiva v'Chasima Tova.
Gamaten.
Same to you, and thank you. Thank everyone for your essential role in this Gemara Chabura. Wishing everyone a wonderful day. And for those that can join us, see you tomorrow. Go ahead.
Yeah.